Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to our show. We have another great show for you today here in sunny San Diego. Before that, I want to introduce Erica Trolson with Legacy Investments in Real Estate.
And that is Chris Astillero with Exchange Resources.
Thank you for being here to watch our show. Welcome to LEARNin 1031 Live. Erica Trolson, so great to see you today.
You too. I was just jamming to that song in the background over here.
Hasn't it got better over the last year, just everything that we've done? I mean, we've grown so much, and now we've got our own show doing 1031s and DST. The Wonder Woman, the expert of DSTs and 1031s, right?
Yeah, we have like a spin-off. I feel like a TV character that like got their own spin-off show.
I'm super excited for today's show. So why don't we go ahead and get started?
Yeah, well, before we start, let's quickly thank our sponsor.
Located in Rancho Bernardo, we've been around for over 26 years, and we've done over 60,000 tax-deferred exchanges. If you don't do a 1031 tax-deferred exchange, you could be faced with about 30 to 40% in taxes, right? Wouldn't you rather roll that over into the next property so that you can buy more with it? Well, we're here to give you your options. Let's talk. Oh my God, who is that expert in 1031s? That's amazing. It kind of looks like me.
He does. You guys could be twins.
Anyway, Erica, great to have you here today. Always great to see you. Congratulations on your baby too. Just wanted to say, I saw your baby. She's amazing. You have a beautiful family. And
she did a networking event with me the other night, and she just like threw the carrier on my chest the whole night, and I put like, "Hi, I'm Erica, and this is Ivy." And so everyone like kind of
Ivy. That's a beautiful name.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful name. Beautiful name. So congratulations.
Thank
How do you feel? Have you recovered from having the baby?
I am on water instead of caffeine at this point. I mean, I had my caffeine today, trust me. But I was like, okay, I gotta ice water. Ice water like gets you through anything. Late night studying back in the day, and now the rest of my work day.
Cleanse your body with lots of water, right? Cleanse your body. But you look great. You look fabulous. Always happy to see you. Knowledgeable queen of DSTs. We're going to talk about some really great content today. We've got a special guest.
Yeah.
She's also a realtor, a lender. She's done development. So we're happy to have her here. Doc A is going to be here today. So we're going to have a fantastic, fun-filled, informative show for a lot of people who want to know a little bit about the benefits of the 1031 exchange. So what we're going to do,
we're going to film in. I have some questions that were submitted for us to ask you, Chris, and then we can get our guests input and questions too. So welcome, Dr. A. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are.
Okay, I am Dr. Abina Bradford. I am President and CEO of Bradford Mortgage and Realty, Inc. I do a lot of commercial real estate, but I do a lot of residential lending and lending for investors. I also am a professor, and I teach real estate and construction management. So I'm around the industry and run into a lot of people who can benefit from a 1031 exchange and introduce them even to the DST. I can help you with all of your investment property needs and financing. We have some marvelous programs that would assist you, and then you can take advantage of what we hear today on the 1031 tax exchange. It is so great to be here with you guys. Thank you, Erica and Chris.
Great to have you here, Doc.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. This is your first time on one of these shows, right?
Yes, it is.
Welcome.
So this is exciting.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting.
Chime in as things come up. We're going to start asking questions. So I'll ask Chris our first question. And, feel free to let us know if you've had investors that have these questions or things that come up often as you're working with people. So Chris, our first question for you today is how to determine if a property is actually truly eligible for a 1031 exchange.
Very, very good question, because many people don't know if they're qualified for a 1031 exchange. So one of the first things is that the 1031 exchange has been around for over 100 years. And it's really specifically developed because it helps investors defer their capital gains taxes. So in order to qualify for a 1031 tax deferred exchange, you must have an investment property, a rental property that you've had income from, that you have leases for, that you've declared in your Schedule E. So that's definitely one of the questions is, have you held the property as an investment property? Or have you just lived in it as a primary residence? Because if you've lived in it as a primary residence, it does not qualify unless you turn it into a rental property. The second is, what is your intent when you purchase the next property? Obviously, okay, if you have a rental property and you've declared it in your Schedule E and you've had income from that investment property, is your intent to buy another investment property, to hold it as an investment property to produce income? Or are you thinking of moving into that property? Some people think that they can actually sell their investment property and then move it into it prematurely. But guess what? The IRS is going to red flag it. And you know what? You may be exposed to a 30 to 40% in capital gains consequence if you move into the property prematurely. You can move into that property after 2 years that you've had that investment property. But if you move into it prematurely, that is a red flag. The third qualifying question is, how are you going to hold the property? What title, what vesting? Will it be the same title and vesting as your relinquished property? Will it be the same vesting when you purchase your replacement property? Because in the eyes of the IRS, we're all known by our social security numbers and by our EIN number. The federal government wants to see consistency when you sell and then when you purchase with the same vesting. Okay, so those are basically the three. Have you held it as an investment property? Is your intent to hold it as an investment property? And same taxpayer selling is the same taxpayer buying? There has to be some consistency. So those are basically the three rules to determine if you are qualified for a 1031 exchange.
So Chris, holding a property for investment, it can be pretty simple or easy if you see like a signed lease and, like you said, like this kind of 2-year rule. That's like the safe harbor, right? The safe harbor
Yep.
guide is, if you hold it for 2 years, you're collecting rents. It's pretty clearly an investment property. I was just asked yesterday by someone, can I buy land in my exchange? And the easy answer is that, well, I guess there's not an easy answer. The answer is either are you buying it to develop it, or which would create inventory. It's in like an inventory property, or are you buying it to hold it for appreciation and like see if there's value down the road. Now, in this person's scenario, they want to buy it because they know it's a really, really desirable piece of land. It has not yet been developed, but they don't want to develop it at this time.
Yeah.
They're thinking, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to hold on to it until I get a really good offer. What do you think in that kind of scenario?
So that's a very good question for a lot of people who are interested in buying land. The answer is absolutely you can buy land. But again, the intent is to hold that property for appreciation. If you intend to purchase that piece of property and to build on it and then turn around and sell it, that does not qualify. That piece of land does not qualify for a 1031 tax deferred exchange, because in essence, you're a developer. You're going to be flipping that property. You're not holding it for the productive use of a trade or business and collecting income. And so that does not qualify if you're going to develop the property and turn around and flip it. But for appreciation purposes, to hold on to it and let it appreciate in value and then turn around and do another 1031 exchange, you can qualify.
Maybe
Okay.
a bit later at some point.
Yeah. There's a possibility, but we always recommend that they do talk to their CPA to clarify that. But, again, it's all about the intent, right? It's to hold it for the productive use of a trade or business and collect income from that property or appreciation without being a flipper, because flippers are basically considered dealers, and dealers basically increase inventory on the market. That's why it doesn't qualify if they're just there to purchase it. Yep.
Yeah.
Doc A, did you have something?
Yes, I did. I was just thinking about a transaction that I had not too long ago where the lady was selling her property, and it wasn't clear if she lived in it or if it was an investment property or a second home. But she was selling the property to, of course, someone who's going to use it as their primary residence. And so
Mhm.
she told me that, oh, I can't close this deal until I find another property. So apparently she was trying to do a 1031 exchange, but she didn't have her property ready and she didn't think she would find one in a short period of time. So then my question is, let's say it was a primary residence. And
Mhm.
you just said that if she gets another property, then she would have to get it with the intent of renting it out. But what if she doesn't have any experience? Is this a situation where a DST could come in, or how would a 1031 exchange benefit her?
So, Eric, I'll let you answer that question.
Yeah, well, the first thing that comes to mind is you mentioned that if it is her personal primary use, like personal use or primary residence, it's not going to be 1031 eligible anyway. So, she's been living in it, utilizing it, even as a second home. If she's not holding it for an investment, but holding it for personal use, it's not going to be eligible to 1031 exchange it. So, in that case, the DST is not going to really be necessary at all, because she could invest cash in a DST, no problem, but most people are using them in 1031 exchanges as a replacement property after they sell their investment property. But if it's not an investment property that she's selling, she can't exchange it anyway.
Unless she turns it into a rental property. So if she lived in the property for at least 2 out of the last 5 years as a primary residence, she can turn it into a rental for at least 2 tax years or 2 years so that she's eligible for a 1031 exchange. And then that way she can defer the capital gains taxes on the gain and then roll it into the DST. That would probably be the best scenario for her to qualify. But again, also because she's lived in the property for, let's say, 2 out of the 5 years, she qualifies for a 121 tax exclusion, which allows her, if she's single, the first $250,000 of the gain is tax-free, okay? And then if she's married, that 121 tax exclusion is up to $500,000 tax-free. So, that's basically her benefit as if she's living in the property as a primary residence. But in order for her to qualify, she has to turn it into a rental first and foremost before she can actually roll that gain into a DST. Right, Erica?
So if she was an international person, and even though she said it was her primary residence, she lived in another country for the last 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So she wasn't physically living here.
Prior to living abroad, did she live in the property?
I don't recall. I really don't.
Those are all good questions, that I would typically ask if she were to call me, or, Chris would ask if you called him. When someone's interested in selling their home and wondering if they're eligible for a 1031 exchange, to defer the taxes between the sale and a purchase of a new property, it does have to be held for investment use for, typically at least 2 years. Is that like safe harbor 2-year guideline? So if she had been renting it, it can be pretty simple to say, yes, this has been an investment property for at least a couple of years, let's exchange it. If she's been living out of the country, if it was a personal use property, not a rental, it's likely to not be eligible for a 1031 exchange. So this is the exact, the question was how to determine if it's eligible. This is a perfect example. If she did want to have potentially some tax benefit and she's been out of the country, we would ask her, when did you last live in the property? Because if she lived in it for at least 2 out of the most recent 5 years, 2 of the last 5 years, she could take some tax advantage using the 121 exclusion that Chris just mentioned. So that can be up to $250,000 if she's single, up to $500,000 if filing jointly with a spouse. But it is also kind of like prorated, and I don't know the exact calculation for that. She'd have to talk to a professional. But typically when we see people combining the 121 and the 1031 for to maximize their tax write-off, not write-off in the 1031, it's a deferral. But the write-off part or the exclusion part is that if she lived in it, great, she can have potentially have some tax exclusion at the sale of her property. But it all comes down to like the years, the timing, the number of years. So all good things to discuss with her and get questions, going that she could then take to her tax preparer, her CPA, her accountant, whoever she's working with, to determine those.
Can I ask you another question, or should I wait?
No, sure.
We love questions.
Oh, okay. So this is a different scenario.
Yeah.
I had a grandfather who bought a townhouse for his granddaughter. So she lived in it and paid rent. So now he's selling it to her. And so now that she's going to put a mortgage on it, he's going to get some tax benefits from the equity that has grown into the property, which means he's going to have to pay some taxes. Is this one good for he's not going to buy really another one. So is that a DST situation? Because he's at retirement age.
Dr. A, I want his number. No. So that actually is like a perfect scenario of someone who has a more complex indirect situation where they should be, from what I've heard, if everything is perfectly accurate, from what I've heard, it could be eligible for a 1031 exchange because he's been charging her rent to live in it, right? Yeah. So that is, as Chris said, you're collecting rents. That is an investment. So that's an investment property. It's a trade. It's your business. You're renting out the property for income. So they, in theory, and again, we're always going to say talk to your tax professional.
Right.
If he's been collecting, market rents on this property from his granddaughter, it should be 1031 eligible. If he's been doing it at least a couple of years. And then Chris, will you chime in selling a property to a family member, as long as it's, been a rental, it's been held for investment purposes, and he intends to buy something that's an investment, such as a DST, for example, that should be eligible for 1031. Yeah.
Yeah. And as long as you've also declared it on your Schedule E, that definitely justifies the fact that it is qualified for a 1031 exchange. So then after he sells it, he can definitely go into a DST. He can get passive income. Again, Erica, with regard to DSTs, he's in there for at least 5 to 7 years, depending on when the sponsor wants to sell it. And then if he's happy with that DST and he's collecting this passive income on a monthly basis without having to deal with the management, the tenants, the toilets, the trash, the turmoil of being a landlord, then he can continue to do that. After 5 to 7 years, when the sponsors sell it, he can do another 1031 exchange back into another DST. And Erica is happy to help him with that.
And a point of clarification really quickly, just, when someone's doing a 1031, they're not automatically eligible to invest in DSTs. There are some defining criteria for investors into DSTs, one of which being accredited, and we can get into that, at another time, but also just knowing their goals. If he really wants liquidity, something Chris just mentioned, typically 5 to 7 year hold period is pretty standard or average. If someone's like, I want $200,000 at the end of the year, that isn't someone that I would, put all of their equity straight into a DST, because they won't be able to access that. So, but they are very, very eligible to talk to me and call me, and and we can have those discussions. So I'm not going to, charge them to have conversations about their goals and their investment property or what they're planning to do. I love having those conversations, and even if it means not investing in a DST, that it's my duty, my priority, to let them know, if there's another professional I think they should speak to instead. It's like my fiduciary duty to take care of their best interests, whether that's, investing with us or not.
Okay, perfect, Erica. Anything else, Doc, before we move on?
Yes, I have one more question. Then we can move forward. So I'm trying to find out. I'm listening to the DST. I'm pretty much grasping the 1031 exchange, Chris. Thank you for that clarity. But here's what I'm thinking: how my clients would benefit in a DST. We have all of these creative financing programs now for people who are purchasing investment properties. So they'll finance an investment property, they'll sell an investment property, And so I'm sure they're going to be looking for an exchange if they want to stay in the game, or a DST if they want to retire. Is that
Mhm.
what the difference is? What is the distinct difference?
Yeah. So DST stands for Delaware Statutory Trust. It's
Mhm.
kind of the envelope that a real piece of real estate is held in. And the reason that people are interested in them is, as you said, so that they can retire from being a landlord, right? They don't want to, be bogged down with that at, well, let's see, 7 p.m. tonight when my parents are watching my daughters so I can go to a baseball game. They don't want to be called about a leaky sink, right? So if they have done an exchange into active managed property, they would be responsible for that. If they are in a truly passive piece of real estate, which is what the Delaware Statutory Trusts are, they are not the one that gets called. All of the investors in DSTs are truly passive investors once they've made their decision to make the investment. And the sponsor, that's the one who's put the deal together, made it available, they're managing the properties, they will eventually sell the properties on behalf of the investors. They're the ones that get to make those decisions. So they get the call about a leaky sink. My mom and dad don't have to drop everything and tell me to come home from my baseball game, which I'm very excited to go to, and to come home and fix that problem. So that is really like the defining factor for people. That's one of the main things we focus on with our investors is what kind of lifestyle do you want with your exchange? Do you want to give up the tenants, trash, and toilets of managing property? Do you want to go into something passive, or do you like having that lifestyle? Do you like being hands-on? Do you like being the one that if you have a property manager, that the property manager is calling you to ask questions? I had a client who was on a cruise and they were in the middle of their exchange and they said, or they're in the middle of the sale of their property rather. And they're like, we want to get out of management. We're going on a cruise and we're hoping that escrow closes while we're on this cruise. And I was like, what happens before you return? If the property hasn't sold yet, it hasn't closed, you're still responsible for the tenants. You're going to be out at sea. Can you get a phone call from your property manager? And they're like, oh, probably not. Good point. So I guess we have to figure that out. So it's all those little things that add up as people are looking to retire.
So my investors, they can purchase properties and put the title in the DST. Is that what you're saying? So
No,
I finance 3 or 4 people. They want to buy all these investment properties, but like you said, they don't want to be a landlord.
Yeah. A DST is not a property that they would purchase on their own and like put into something else.
Okay.
It's a separate entity, right? It's a really large scale piece of real estate. We see them be commercial shopping malls, a portfolio of retail properties, a 430 unit apartment building, and anything like that. And they become a fractional owner. So let's say someone sells $1 million home in Del Mar, and they, after whatever fees go to the realtor and whoever else, but they reinvest that $1 million through the 1031 exchange. They're going to call Chris. They're going to get their exchange documents in order. And they do that before the close of escrow. And they would sell that piece of real estate, take the equity through the 1031 exchange, and reinvest the equity into something that they are not personally responsible for. So we have like an inventory of different DST properties. We help them determine which, if any, of those properties are aligned with their goals. And those goals mainly being passive real estate, tax deferral of the 1031 exchange. Do they need to replace debt in their exchange or not? Do they want to stay all cash? Do they need to go into 3 properties because they have 3 kids and they love them all equally? Or one property, I had one investor go, well, we'll probably do 35, and 30% because that last daughter, she doesn't call her mom enough. And it like cracked me up. But then he was very serious. I was like, oh, okay, I believe you, but that's up to you and your trust attorney, how you want to write that down. But yeah, it simplifies a lot of things, estate planning, lifestyle, but it's not property that they are going to purchase and then put into something. That is replacement property in the exchange.
Yeah, it just rolled completely over into that DST. So if it's a $100 million portfolio and they have a $1 million in gain, they own 1/100th fractional ownership of that portfolio of that senior living or that student housing or commercial properties or hotel. And then they get a passive income based on that 1/100th ownership, like right away. Right, Erica? Right away, as soon as they get locked in to that property. Yep. So that's basically how the DSTs work.
Let's say it's cash flowing $100,000 a month. They're going to get $1,000 a month.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next segment of the show. Let's talk about the biggest 1031 do's and don'ts investors must know. One of those do's is please do talk to a CPA or a tax advisor to determine if it's in fact a benefit for you, because you may have lost carry forwards from previous years, or you can carry that over and you may not need to do a 1031 exchange. Please do abide by the strict timelines of the 1031 exchange. Once the relinquished property sells, right, your rental property sells, and it's in escrow, make sure that you open up the exchange and sign all your documents before the close of escrow on that relinquished property. Right, Erica?
Yeah. How often do you get a phone call from someone that's like, okay, so I was told to call you. I sold my property. I closed yesterday. I'm ready to open my exchange.
You have constructive receipt of all of your exchange funds, so you're going to be taxed. I'm sorry, you're standing on the dock and the ship has already sailed and we can't, backdate any documents. It's already done. You already received the funds. You closed the escrow on your property and we can't turn back time. So it has to be done before the close of escrow, fully executed. That way those funds can be transferred to exchange resources. That $1 million in gain goes to us. We hold it in trust for the investor until they've identified their properties within that 45 days. So do abide by the timelines, because extensions are rare unless there's a natural disaster. And even if there's a natural disaster and you are an affected taxpayer, you still have to contact your CPA and the IRS to determine if you get that extension. And also make sure that you do, before you close escrow, that you also understand what investments you want to make. Right? As far as what investments you want to make sure that if those properties that you've identified within that 45-day period all fall out escrow, make sure that you have Erica there in place so that, you can roll it into a DST in case all those properties fall apart, right? One of the don'ts is please don't wait till the last minute. It takes planning to do a 1031 exchange. It takes planning to do all these different things. You must start looking at your replacement properties. I would say even before you list your properties, your agent should already be showing you properties that you don't want, right? And just make sure that there's communication, right, Erica?
That is a really good point. I love what you just said, and I don't know why it made me think of. Well, I kind of know why it made me think of this. Knowing what you don't want is also so important. I silly, slightly related story, but knowing that you don't want a duplex, sure. Knowing that you don't want a house on the beach where you are never going to visit or you hate sand. I don't know. But knowing what you don't want is just as important as knowing what you do want. I was completely convinced that I did not want a sleeveless dress for my wedding. And my friend said, just try on one, and then you will know for a fact. And I tried on that dress and I fell in love instantly. This is my wedding dress. And it was the first day we went wedding dress shopping a year and a month before my wedding. So I to try and figure out what I didn't want, I ultimately discovered that's exactly what I wanted. So knowing ahead of time, like you said, talk to your agent. If you're interested in potentially exchanging, the agent should be calling Chris and just discussing what that looks like. Knowing that you don't want to be an active manager anymore. That's so important. That helps you determine Do you want to do an exchange? Do you not? Are you interested in something passive? Are you not? Do you just want to totally cash out altogether? So important for the agent to start asking some of those questions. Get Chris on the line, get me on the line. We're going to help them, figure that out for the investors.
And the last and final thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to create any cash boot at the end. And what is cash boot? Cash boot is any funds left over at the close of escrow. So let's say, for example, you have to buy one of the rules is you have to buy equal to or greater than your net sales price. So let's say your net sales price, right, is $1.5 million. One of the rules says you have to buy equal to or greater than $1.5 million. But let's say you weren't able to find anything for more than $1 million. So what's 1.5 minus 1 million? That's $500,000 difference. So if the investor gets a $500,000 check at the close of escrow, guess what? They're going to pay 30 to 40% in taxes on that, right? It's about $150,000 to $200,000 in taxes. So that's why Erica comes in.
He's talking about boot. If you have $500,000 left over, and you can't find, it's hard to find $500,000 property in San Diego, for instance, at least one that you want, right? So I think I see where you were going with this, Chris. It looks like you're back, potentially using a DST as a backup or a catch-all for the remaining boot. It's definitely,
even if it's $100,000, Erica, right? Even if it's $100,000 in boot, where can you find property for $100,000? So you talk to Erica, she'll be able to happily park that in. But again, she needs to also tell you about being an accredited investor in order to actually qualify for the DST, right?
Yeah, that's number one, eligibility. There's a couple of ways it can be determined, but net worth or income, something that we often discuss with folks. But I do think we're at time. Chris, do we want to invite everyone to join us on School and keep learning?
Well, actually, you already started, so why don't you do it?
So if you like what you're hearing here today, if you want to join this community of real estate learners and investors, School is where we do a lot of that, SKOOL. But you see the link there at the bottom, join.learninlocal.com. You can join us there, get involved, ask your questions, let us know what you're interested in discussing and learning about. We'd love to connect with you. That's where we can do it.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much, Erica Traulson, for Legacy Real Estate Investments. Doc A, you were splendid. You did such a great job today. Thank you so much for being a part of our show. We look forward to seeing you again soon. And I'm going to go ahead and say thank you again, all of you, for watching our live show. And we'll see you at the next LEARNin 1031 Live.
Okay, thank you.